Alrighty.
Okay, so welcome to the Overcoming Overwhelm class. You can go ahead and mute if you'd like. Feel free to unmute if you have a question or you want to speak up. I don't care. Go ahead and interrupt me, or you can pop something in the chat. That's okay as well. And I'm going to be just watching to make sure if anyone else comes in the room that I let them in. So, this is the next class in our series of classes. If you haven't seen any of the classes beforehand, I've done a few and I'm doing them every Thursday through the end of 2023, every Thursday at 11 a.m. There's a new topic. And so don't get overwhelmed. This is our Overwhelm class. So think about or pop in the chat or whatever. What are some of the things that cause overwhelm for you? What do you think causes overwhelm for you? Where does it come from? And like, how does it feel? And before I even go on, I'm Melanie McNamara. I am a life mindset coach for successful women in business who want to feel as good on the inside as their life looks from the outside. So we work on a lot of things. So most of my clients are very high achieving women with a lot of things on their plates. And so we work through that together. So, okay, overcoming overwhelm. So where does it come from, right? So what most people will say, so here's a lot of the things I see for what may cause overwhelm for people is the to-do list. Um, you know, how many of us have or do our checklists have checklists, right? How much do we have on our to-do list? And a lot of those lists just grow and grow and grow. And for those of us who like to check things off of our list, we may look at that and feel very overwhelmed. Family responsibilities, whether it's, your kids or you're caring for parents, or there's a lot, going on in your family. You may have 5 kids, you may have 10 kids, you may have 1 kid or no kids. Doesn't matter. Many of us are business owners. So when you're a business owner, there's tasks and things to do in your business, right? Marketing, lead generation, taking classes for continuing education. You have clients to manage, and then maybe you have employees or a team or colleagues that you work with. And then there's paperwork, um, bills. Bills are just going to keep coming. Those are things on our to-do list, right? Just regular cleaning. Uh, here's one. Humaning, just being a human, right? There's a lot of things involved that we often don't even put in our calendar about preparing for the day. What do you have to do throughout the day to be a human? Grabbing a drink of water, um, just simple things. And sometimes we feel overwhelmed and we don't even get up to go to lunch in the middle of our day. So this is just a few. If you're just joining us, hello. And we are talking about, I was just asking if, what kinds of things feel like they create overwhelm for you. And feel free to pop anything in the chat and or just unmute and ask a question. I don't care. You can interrupt me. I have no problem with that. So here's the thing. None of these things. Oh, and I put over here options. There are so many options in the world today of things we could be doing, right? Choices to make, down from like when you wake up in the morning, which socks should I wear today, right? They don't seem like big decisions, but all of the options in the world that you have throughout the day, the way our brain has evolved, it was very, very simple way back in the beginning. And now there are lots of options to choose from. So the truth is none of these things create overwhelm. None of them. I don't care how many on your to-do list. Okay, I'm going to be yelling at my cat a little bit. What actually creates your overwhelm is the thoughts you're thinking about those things. Okay. I can hear you calling BS on that. Just let's keep going, right? So these are some of the things I hear. There's so much to do. Okay. I don't have enough time. And often it's to do it all. I don't have enough time or enough time to do it all. I don't know where to start, right? Prioritizing. I should be doing more. We put a lot of rules on ourselves on what we should and shouldn't do and how much time. Yes, she said, Amanda says, I have to remind myself to be a human when I'm working too much. Isn't that the truth? Right? So, what other thoughts might come up? Um, like it could be, I can't stop working. I need to finish. Don't you love my writing? And like my eyes, like sometimes it's this, sometimes it's cursive. A total aside, I've heard that like, kids today, they can't even read cursive because they never learned it. So you think about like all the documents, all our historical documents written in cursive. That is a way off the topic thing, but it just made me think of that. It's okay. So here's some of the things. It's what you're thinking about. It's how you're managing your mind and your emotions around the things on that last list there, just the facts of our lives, the things on our to-do list, right? So really time is our most valuable asset, right? If you think about it, think of the most successful people you know and people who maybe don't have a job. It's just the way they're thinking about managing their time. So overwhelm is really a flavor of anxiety, right? Overwhelm is a feeling. And really, the feeling we feel when we're feeling overwhelmed is a lot of anxiety. And when you're feeling anxious, you're really in a stress cycle. So if you think about it, the stress cycle, you've probably heard this before: fight, flight, or freeze. You may have heard fawn or appease, but that's really an action you take when you're in usually the freeze. You might appease. So actually, so in the fight, often when we're in a stress cycle, we're feeling anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, we may just like, I just got to dive in. I got to plow through. I'm not going to stop and go have lunch, right? So that's kind of that fight response. We're grinding it out. You've heard the phrase rise and grind. I am so against the grind culture. I don't think we need to grind in order to create amazing lives for ourselves and thriving businesses. I don't like that. We're running around like a crazy chicken. I don't like to say with chickens with their heads cut off. That makes me sad. So we're just running around like crazy chickens, just overworking ourselves, right? Then you're in that stress cycle and you're in the fight mode. Or you could be in flight. And when you react with flight, what you do is you buffer. So instead of doing the thing that's on your list that to do, you maybe go have a snack when you're not hungry. Maybe you start scrolling on social media. Maybe you go have a drink, right? A drink at the end of the day. A lot of people, there's nothing wrong with it, but just notice when you're drinking because you want to avoid doing something. So flight is the avoidance, right? You're maybe instead of preparing for a presentation, you go and you do the dishes, right? It can look like anything. It makes you feel productive. You feel like you're doing something productive because often when we are in that mode, what we're doing, we've got a thing. So you've got a presentation, you've got a client, and you want to put together a presentation for them or whatever it is. And you're like, well, I'm just going to go do the dishes. Usually it is something physical where we get that sense of satisfaction where there's an ending, right? Like you empty the dishwasher, you go mow the lawn, you maybe even go exercise. Like buffering doesn't have to be something that's negative in your life. It's just something you do to avoid something else. And it produces like that net negative result in your life. So, the exercise, yeah, that's great. But then you go back and you're like late for the presentation, right? Or the freeze. So when you're in the freeze mode, you do nothing. Like that could look very similar to the flight. Like if you're just sitting on your couch and watching Netflix, you're delaying the things that are important to you, that really are important to you. And or you maybe say yes. So that's what made me think when I said the appease or the fawn, saying yes to things, and you're just adding more and more and more on your plate. Go back and watch the people pleasing class. We talked a lot about that. So the steps really, like when you notice you're in doing one of these things, right? When you're noticing that, you want to settle and soothe your nervous system, right? So the first thing, it just sounds so silly and simple. And I say that because I used to think, well, that's dumb. That's not going to help me because I was usually like doing this stuff. Um, just breathing, just taking a moment to really ground yourself and take deep breaths. And there are many different breath work techniques that are helpful. My favorite is just to like put my feet on the ground, put my hand on my heart, sometimes maybe give myself a hug, put your hands, like cup your face, put your finger behind your ears. There's like a theory, there's vagal nerve theory that there's this nerve that runs from your head all the way down, and it can monitor and lower your blood pressure and just calm you down, right? Put like this, sometimes put your hand on your gut. You've got like your head brain, your heart brain, and your gut brain, right? And so just being able to have some technique, some go-to thing that really helps you. Mine is always, oh my God, I feel like I can just feel it immediately. Hand on my heart, hand over hand on my heart, and doing 4 breaths in. I can't talk and do the breath thing, but 4 breaths in, hold for 4, and exhale for 8. It's really in that exhale that really helps. Okay. So doing the breath, maybe you want to dance it out. This is one of my favorite books, Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. She talks about we don't complete our stress cycles. We humans generally don't do that. If you watch an animal in the wild and they startle and they run and then they stop, you can see that they shake it off, right? They always complete their stress cycle, but we stay in this heightened stress cycle. We never complete it. So doing some of these activities, the breathing, doing like dancing movements, right? You've heard all this before probably, but the reason for it is to complete that stress cycle so that you can get your cognitive brain back online. Um, so maybe in the sun, well, maybe in the winter, walk out bare feet, ground yourself. I've walked out with bare feet in the snow before, and it actually feels really good. Um, get some fresh air, right? Dance it out. Things like that. I have a whole list of things that I can share with you too. Another way is to get out of your brain and into your body. Like noticing, what is that feeling I'm feeling right now? It's overwhelm, right? So, or maybe it's worry or anxiety or whatever it is, because you're telling yourself something about your to-do list. Notice where it's at in your body. What you do is like hyper focus in on the feeling in your body. Lean into it. Describe it. Is it hot or cold? Like, where is it? It's in my stomach. It's right here. Is it hard or soft? Is it moving or still? Does it feel heavy or light? Is it tingly? Like that's getting you out of your brain and processing that emotion. Okay. So you're processing it through. And the more you do that, and the more you kind of get out of your head and process that through your body, you can feel it start to dissipate. And then when you're relaxed, you can move on. Okay. So the second step is to find or notice what is the thought I'm having or the collection of thoughts or what am I believing about my to-do list that's creating this feeling. Okay. So what am I thinking? We can refer back to our list of thoughts, right? Am I thinking something like this? Okay. If I don't get this done, I'm going to lose money, right? Something, I don't know, whatever thoughts come up for you, notice them. So, sometimes we just notice we're doing one of these things. Okay, now my dog needs to go out. Hold on. So thinking about for you what your usual go-to thoughts are, um, you can start to catch that really quick. So find and notice those thoughts, uh, and then questioning them. Is this true? What else is true? Right? There's so much to do. Watch your language. Watch your language around how you describe your day, how you describe the things you do, because so much to do. First of all, it's subjective. But when you tell yourself, oh my gosh, I have so much to do today, like I can just feel it. Like I can already feel the anxiety rising, right? What else is true? Well, I have 3 appointments and one, so like, whatever it is, I have 3 appointments on my calendar today, and I plan to complete this other project that I have going on. That's it, right? Um, First of all, this is correct. You don't have enough time to do it all. That's just humaning. That's like math, right? Like there's only so many hours in the day. But we've been conditioned to believe that we're supposed to do it all and have it all. Like, what if that's not true? What does enough even mean? Right? I don't know where to start. We're going to talk about decisions and prioritizing. I should be doing more. Like anytime you hear should, always question. Like, you've probably heard stop shooting on yourself and all those cute, catchphrases, but it's really true. It's a huge indicator for you to just pause and say, "Oh, why am I telling myself I should do this thing? Is there a rule I'm following? Is there a belief I have? Why do I think I should?" Not just stop saying it, but really question it. I can't stop working. Is that true? Right? Does someone have a gun to your head? No. Often we will describe it in ways, right? Back to the language, like you feel under pressure there's a deadline, all of these things creates a lot of anxiety. I need to finish. Um, I feel like I was going to go back and say something else about that. But yeah, just defining so much. What is it? Like separating the math from the drama. So questioning what you're thinking. Oh, the next step after you question this is like, what else is true? Right. And we've kind of started doing that, right? There's so much to do. Well, actually, looking at my calendar, I have put 3 appointments and, completing this project on my calendar. Oh, I don't have enough time. Like that's one, like if that's your go-to, I always have a go-to, like, oh, that's right. My brain is telling me again that I don't have enough time. But actually, I always have enough time for the things that are important to me. I'm learning how to prioritize. Um, I am safe, like even just going back to I am safe in this moment, right? I am safe and nobody's got a gun to my head, and I get to decide what I want to do next. Right. So answering these thoughts, what else is true? Sometimes it's not, how do I want to put this? Sometimes it's not like answering the exact thought. I don't have enough time, or like there's so much to do, could be I know how to make a plan. Okay. The other thing about making a plan is our brains really can't plan and implement at the same time. So you really want to make sure that you are planning your days ahead of time. Find what works for you, because it doesn't have to be the structured thing that you follow to the T, but it's like a dance. Figuring out the best ways that you work and what works for you are super important. But planning ahead of time prevents you from like planning in the moment. So like thinking back to school when you did an outline before you did a paper. Like I did an outline before I put this class together. Okay, what do I want to share? These are the things I want to share. What's the order? And then I got into the actual content, right? So it's kind of the same thing when you're planning what you're going to put on your calendar. Then when that time comes, you can implement it. And I think another thing people do is when they're looking at their to-do list, they're looking at, say, a project as a task, like do my taxes, right? That is not like a simple task. That is a project that you need to plan out, right? So like maybe one day it's I'm going to create a file folder where I'm going to put everything. And then another day it's like, okay, I'm going to gather receipts from January. Hopefully, hopefully you're doing them as you go along, but sometimes we don't, right? So then we have to go back. So question and then find a better thought. Okay. So let's talk about prioritizing the things on your task list. All things are not equal. Some of us, our brains look at our to-do list and it feels like everything is talking to us at the same volume, right? It's like everything is equal. And that's where the I don't know where to start comes in, or I just start at the top or just jump right in without prioritizing. And these are like the three things I think that come up a lot when it comes to prioritizing is I don't know what to do first, or I'm confused, or I need more time. So we just delay it like our taxes. And it's April 14th, right? So this goes back, question those thoughts, right? I don't know what to prioritize. It could be I'm learning how to prioritize, setting a protocol for yourself. See, now I think I'm jumping ahead. What yeah, no, we're recapping at the end. So setting a protocol for decision making, and I think I'm going to do a whole class just on decision making because that will be really important. The number one thing you can do is just decide. Okay. So what I see most people do when it's time to decide is they're hesitant to make a decision because they're thinking there's a right or wrong decision. There's never a right or wrong decision. Decisions, though, unleash all of your power, and you can't decide if something worked or not until you actually decide to do it and try it. Okay. So you're feeling overwhelmed. You run through those steps. And now you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to prioritize what's important to me. And it might be you decide that you have top 3 priorities every day. What are those priorities? And then you filter all your decisions through that. But yeah, so going to the truth, we are human. This is what we talked about. We're human and we do have limited capacity. We can't do it all. We can't do everything. And learning to be okay with that, learning to feel the discomfort of not doing everything. And I think about this like reading. So how many of you love to read? And you go in a library, like if you really, really love to read and you look around at all the books, you can feel excited, but also there's like a sense of loss that you're like, I am never going to be able to read every book in this library. Right? Or you go on Netflix and you love movies and you're like, I'm never going to be able to watch every single movie. Sometimes we might feel a sense of loss with that. So, a lot of times when we have a lot of options and we're trying to prioritize our list of things we want to do, there are things that we're just going to not do. We're going to decide we're not doing that. So, if you feel when you're prioritizing and you feel a sense of loss or guilt, or maybe even some fear, you're doing it right. You're doing it right. And that's okay. Um, I always say it's math, like it's math or drama, right? It's math versus drama. So separating out the math of the things that are your priorities, what you want to do, all the things from the drama, which is our story about it, is so important when we're looking at that. So there's no right or wrong decision. There's only indecision. And it takes a huge degree of self-trust to be able to just make a decision and move forward and see what happens. But we spend so much time in the indecision because we're afraid that we're going to make a wrong decision. So you don't want to go through life thinking there's a right or wrong. Um, it's going to keep you hesitating. It's going to keep you stuck. It's going to keep you spinning. And then more things, you're going to add more and more things to your to-do list, which you think will create will create your overwhelm, but you'll be thinking about it in a way that creates overwhelm. So, making a decision what to do next gives you power, right? And maybe you like the decision could be, okay, I'm going to go ground myself for 5 minutes or a half hour. Sometimes I decide I'm going to go watch a quick episode of The Good Place because it makes me happy or something, right? You're like, okay, I'm not buffering. I'm deciding I'm going to go do this thing because it's going to clear my brain to go do the next thing, right? Maybe it's call a friend, whatever it is for you. So just making a decision will then give you momentum and power. Making a decision gives you additional information that you can implement then into the next step of your process, right? Going back to the thoughts you could think is, I always know the next best step to take. I always know how to decide one step at a time, right? You don't have to know the end result. Sometimes we get overwhelmed because we think, well, if I make this decision and then I have to make that decision and then that decision, and where's it going to end? And oh my gosh, it could be the wrong decision. No, we just need to take one step and gather the information and then make a decision and take the next step. So, and sometimes we think if I make a wrong will this decision, will doing this thing make me happy? And when you're doing that, you're delegating your happiness to things outside of yourself instead of trusting yourself to know what you need to do, right? Back to that self-trust. So yeah, if you go through life thinking that there are right and wrong decisions, first of all, there's no morality, right? If it's like, oh, should I decide to kick my dog in the face or go do some paperwork? Obviously, there's some moral decision, right? But really, like the decisions we make on a daily basis, there's really no morality. So when we take the morality out of them, there's no right or wrong. So if you do go through your life thinking there's a right or wrong decision, you're going to just be really hesitant. You're probably going to be mean to yourself. You're going to say a lot of things like, oh, there you go again, making the wrong decision. You're going to have a lot of judgment over yourself doing it that way. So decisions just lead us closer to our goals. Yeah, that's a good question to ask yourself. Okay, when you're prioritizing, is this going to lead me closer to my ultimate goal, or is it going to move me away? Okay, that's a really good question, especially around business, around your business decisions. Well, even personal decisions, right? Like in your relationships. Is telling someone they're wrong moving me closer to my goal of having more connection with my loved one or moving me farther away? Okay. So, worry, confusion, overwhelm, it all just pretends to be necessary to our brain. Our brain is like, well, if we keep doing this, spinning up here, it feels productive, but it's not. Okay. There are circumstances. And if you've taken the class before, you know this model, circumstances, and we have thoughts about our circumstances, which create our feelings like overwhelm, which drive all of our actions or inactions or reactions, which creates all the results in our life. So all the results are always going to go back to our initial thought. It's never about the circumstance. It's what we're thinking about the circumstance. So if you have your to-do list and your thought is, let's just say there's too much to do. So you look at it, there's too much to do, and you feel overwhelmed or maybe anxiety, right? So when you're feeling the overwhelm, what you might do is not prioritize. Maybe you buffer. So that's just in general. I'm saying just buffer. What is it you do to avoid doing the things on your list? You know, a lot of those things on the original list, grind it out. Instead of taking care of yourself, we'll say don't take care of self. And the result is actually there's still a list, okay? Because you're not doing it most of the time, or you're not realizing that there's always going to be things to do. And so if you decide to think, I know how to complete the important things, right? I know how to complete. I know how to discern what's important and what's not. I only need to take one step. Like if you give yourself permission just to do one thing in a day, you create momentum, right? Decisions create momentum in your life. So if you decide, like if you're looking, there's so much to do. If you decide I'm going to do this one thing and I'm going to give myself 15 minutes to do it, and you get in there and you're doing it and 15 minutes are up, you may decide, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought. There's not so much to do. And you might keep going, right? So you may create like confidence for yourself, calm, maybe some calm, um, confident, calm, certainty, safety, right? What if your goal was to always create the feeling of safety for yourself by the way you're thinking about your business or your to-do list? Okay. So I know how to complete the important, and it could be anything, whatever for you. Like my thoughts are not your thoughts, right? So this is so subjective and so personal to you. I mean, we can all probably agree there's too much to do creates anxiety and overwhelm for people. But the thought for you, you have to figure out like, what do I need to think? What do I need to remind myself whenever I start feeling overwhelmed? Okay. That creates that safety to feel confident and calm and certain and take the actions that I want to take. And sometimes like in the action line, it might be allow discomfort. The better you get at just allowing discomfort in your body, because we think, oh, we're supposed to be happy and joyful and do all the things, and life is supposed to be happy, happy. That's not even true at all, right? Everything's 50-50. Running it like especially those of us who are entrepreneurs or business owners. We started our businesses because we have a desire and a passion and a love for something. And there's 50% of the business that really kind of sucks, right? Like well, some of us love the paperwork. Some of us hate the paperwork, right? So sometimes it's just allowing the discomfort of getting through a task that needs to be done. Because if we're delaying it and putting so much drama around doing it, we're never going to do it, right? But if we learn to allow discomfort in our bodies and just get it done. One of my coaches, she says, gag and go. Sometimes you just got to gag and go. And once you get going on it, you get into it, you get it finished, and then you do get that sense of pride and completion. Or you may hate it the whole time and you're like, I'm getting good at doing things I hate. That doesn't mean I think we should do all the things we hate and push ourselves and grind and all of that. No. But sometimes it's just like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. Like it's like changing a diaper, right? You're like, think of your business as a baby, and sometimes you got to change its dirty diapers. And no, we don't love it. And we got to gag and go. We got to hold our nose and say, all right, I'm going to do this thing because it's healthy for my business. I don't really like doing it, but I'm going to do it. Right. so, so, I don't know if you can even read this. I can't see myself. Um, oh, okay. I was just playing around with the view. Okay. So yeah, so just changing this thought, you can see a drastically different result. All right, so let's recap. So how do you handle overwhelm? We went through the steps before of the grounding, settling your nervous system, right? Finding the thought, questioning the thoughts, and creating a new thought, a much more powerful thought for you, to make decisions. So some of the things we want to keep in mind: training your brain to manage your options. Going back to like, there's a million options for things to do. Like, so many of my clients and myself, I see black and white thinking. It's this or that. I have to choose one, but it can be right? So managing options for yourself is really important. Create a decision-making protocol that works for you. And the more I talk about this, the more I think I'm going to create a decision-making class, because there's a lot involved with decision-making. Or a lot of different, I shouldn't say a lot involved, but it's like, there's a lot we can talk about around it that would be helpful. So, when I say decision-making protocol, it's like, one of the most powerful things that I have done is distill like my top 3 values. Like Brene Brown on her website, there's a really great values list. You can Google it, like list of values, and go through. And there's a process to really narrowing it down to like your top 3. And when I go to make decisions, I filter that decision through my top 3 values instead of my emotions in the moment. Because my emotions in the moment are usually like, no, I'm going to run and hide. I don't want to do this thing. Or I'm going to do all the things, right? So, yep, those are probably my 2 main things, right? Probably a lot of you are the same. But when I can filter my decision through what are my top 3 priorities and how would this decision fit in with that, it makes things so much easier. So you always know how you're going to make the decision, because often if we don't know how we're making decisions, we often just go with our gut, which can be okay, but sometimes we jump in out of fear or anxiety or worry. So learning to make those powerful, very decisive decisions. Um, if you look at the most, traditionally successful people in the world, look at Oprah. I'm sure Oprah makes a crap ton of decisions in a day. She doesn't agonize over them, or she knows her priorities. She knows her values. She knows what she wants. She's got her goals. I don't know why I use Oprah, but just do. Practice constraint. That is really hard, especially I think for most of us who are entrepreneurs, is constraining to do one thing, niching down, or, whatever it is, that feels excruciating sometimes. But that doesn't mean one thing for the rest of eternity. It could be one thing for the next hour. So practicing constraining to one thing. There is a book called The One Thing. I used to think it was just a real estate book, because when I was active in real estate, we did book club on that quite a bit, and it was written by Gary Keller, who founded Keller Williams. Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, but it's a really good read, and it's a quick read too for those of us who don't want to sit still. Separating the math versus the drama. What are the facts? What are the items on my to-do list? What is the reality? Are there things, am I using that dramatic language? Manage your vocabulary, right? So how you're describing your day, how you're describing what you're doing. I'm trying to think if I wrote down a few things. Yeah. So like if we say, "Oh, I'm just too busy," or "I can't handle this thing." Whenever you feel like something has got a little tinge of self-pity, it's not time to be judgy and beat yourself up about it or say, "Oh, that's stupid." It's, let me get curious about that, right? What am I feeling entitled to, or whatever it is? So managing your vocabulary, how you're describing things, the way you talk about things. Are you adding more stress on yourself? There's studies done that stress in and of itself is really not harmful. It's the stress on top of the stress that we create with our mind when we make feeling stress or pressure into a big deal. And that's the drama. Okay. And be willing to fail. So making those decisions, like, what do I do next? In making that decision, being willing to fail, redefine failure for yourself. Yeah. I was trying to think. I just did a post the other day about failure. And I know, it was something like, because we all, like, we've heard people say, like, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? And I was like, but what would you do if you knew you would definitely fail over and over and over again? Right? Like, what is in your heart? What are you willing to do? So thinking about that overwhelm, thinking about even your business, whether it's all of it, right? It's our whole lives. There is no personal and business side. Like, it's all just our holistic lives, right? So, what is, thinking about all the things we talked about, and you can put it in the chat or you can just take it with you. What is the one thing? What do you really want to implement into your life this week or immediately to help you feel less overwhelmed and make more powerful decisions for you in your life? And I think, no, I'll wait till later. I'll do that in another class. But that is what I have for you today. If you have any questions about this or anything else, just you can reply to, if this is in an email, if you receive this in an email, you can just reply to the email. It comes right to me, or just send me a private message or email me directly. And let's talk. Yeah, absolutely. I work through all these things with my clients all the time. So thank you so much for joining the class, and I will see you next time.